Welcome to Martha Runs the World, a podcast with a new take on running, fitness, and all things health-oriented. I'm Martha Hughes, your host, and each week I present a new topic that is of interest to all runners. Hi, and welcome to episode 327 of Martha Runs the World. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope you are doing great. I hope your runs are excellent and your training for whatever race your goal is doing fabulous. It is early here today. I apologize. I'm just having my coffee, waking up, getting ready to go out and greet the day, as they say. This weekend was, I think, probably I had the most mileage I've had in runs for a long time, and it's good because I'm really gearing up for my big race in June, and I'll talk about that more in the weeks to come. But this week, I have a very special guest. I don't have guests on very often, just once in a while, because I found that out of the blue, I was getting guest requests from people who have nothing to do with the show. Actually, I also got a request for a guest last week that for a pop singer. Now, why would I have a pop singer on my show? Her agent said nothing about her being a runner, so no. If she was a runner, okay, maybe we could talk about it. But I don't listen to pop music, and I have no interest in furthering her career while harming my audience because her music has nothing to do with this show. So, no, not on my show. Sorry, nothing to do with it. I wish they would actually see what my show was about before they sent a request because it would save them some time. Anyway, so my guest today he's an author and a fitness expert, and he's going to help us run better. His name is David Amerland, and will you welcome him to the show? Here is David Amerland. Will you welcome to the program? He is an author. He does a few other things that we'll talk about today. My guest, David Amerland. Hi, David. How are you?
It's been really good being here, Martha. Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled about the conversation we're about to have.
Great. That's terrific. Let's get started. I wanted to ask you, what is one big mistake that you see runners making in their fitness?
Oh, wow. Okay. There are several we can always pick from.
Sure.
But here's the easiest one. Starting out with too high ambitions and not enough planning and preparation, and thinking that it's going to be easy. Now, I need to unpack all this, of course. Here's what happens usually. We all have, at some point in our life, run. We are biomechanically programmed or designed to actually run. And because we have that capacity, we think it's going to be easy. We think, we can run 20 meters, so we can run 2,000 meters. And we kind of project ourselves. We kind of think that it's going to be as easy as that. And it never is. There are certain, apart from the biomechanics, which we need to improve on every time we actually take up running seriously, there are biochemical changes that need to happen in our body. There are further adaptations that need to happen at the cellular level in how we handle energy and how we basically deal with the with the VO2 capacity or VO2 demands which are made in our system. And also, there's the mental aspect of it, because okay, sure, we can run, but what goes on inside our head is critical to how we actually run and why we run and what effect it has upon us. And nothing really prepares us for those things if we just launch ourselves into it thinking it's going to be easy, sure, I can do it, how hard can it be, kind of thing. So that's a classic mistake. And I think the statistics we have every year, we get to spring, people pick up a pair of trainers that had the in their wardrobe for some time and they haven't used, and they hit the road. And then we have statistics from physiotherapy clinics with injuries that they suffer. We know from more serious injuries which have to do with lower back because of the lower back injuries because of the impact. So these things which are associated with that initial phase of, I'm going to go and run without any kind of preparation.
That is true. And, running is really, really difficult to get down properly. It's easy to
Mm,
start, but takes a long, long time for your body to adjust.
yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that. Here's what happens usually. All of us can run a short distance, and we won't really feel anything too impactful upon us. But the moment we take up running on a regular basis, so we introduce a consistent stressor in our life, which is physical, and the moment we take up long distance running, well, basically we have cardiovascular fitness to deal with, we have the mental capacity, the mental issues to deal with, we have the neurochemical changes which happen inside us that we need to deal with. What we're actually facing at a cellular level is a whole lot of multi-layered energetic cost events. And what that means is that essentially for us, in order for us to become true runners, we have to take it one step at a time, allow our body to adjust. First of all, our skeleton, then our muscles, then our cardiovascular system, then our neural connections, and finally, our own ability to guide ourselves mentally through that process. And it takes a lot of time. But above all, I think, and this is where a lot of people, um, I'm hesitant to say they go wrong because we want them to run. But, it's one thing they don't consider. It's their who and their why. Who are you really? When you run, when you hit the road, you're on your own, your body and the road and the voice in your head. And then why are you doing it? And you need to sort of start thinking about it. And running in many ways becomes, for many people, I think, the key they use to unlock aspects of their lives, mental and physical. But at the same time, in order for it to be truly beneficial to them, they have to start initially with a little better understanding of their own identity, their own reasons for running, their own reasons for subjecting themselves to the kind of physical stress.
Exactly. Your why has to be so strong. And especially as you said, as you get into the longer distances, once you get past the marathon, once you get into the long runs, the races,
Yes.
it's all mental. It really is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because there was a study carried out in 2018 by German neuroscientists. And they looked at I think the Trans European race, I think it's called, foot race, Trans European foot race. It's a 3,000-mile foot
Mm,
race run over 64 days. And what they did is they actually carried out fMRI studies of participants before and after. And this is what they saw, that the brain, the gray matter, shrinks after the race by 6%.
mm,
Now, to put this in context, as we age, every year, we lose about 0.2%. And those participants had 6% of shrinkage of brain gray matter. Within 6 months, that had bounced back.
mhm.
But the point of this is that there are undoubtedly significant changes which happen inside us
Right.
when we run, especially those particular races where the body and the mind are pushed to the very edge of their capability. And we still haven't got a clear idea of the processes involved and the impact that they have upon us.
It's true. There is a race like that. It's a little different. It's a little over 3,000 miles, but it takes place on one city block in Brooklyn. It's
Oh,
called the
wow.
Surrey Chimnoy, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it started years ago, and they keep going every year, and it's like a physical meditation, and they keep it going
Hmm.
for that long, for, like, over 30, 40 days.
Whoa.
And it's just this they keep moving around this block, and they keep it going for every summer, and it's just this moving meditation. I would have no desire to do it, but people do it every year. It's,
They
kind of a
do.
strange one, yeah.
And I understand that because, and I'm very glad you mentioned meditation in this context. Again, there are fMRI studies have been carried out with lifelong meditation practitioners
Mhm.
and also long distance runners who have participated in that sport for a long time. And the changes which happen in the wiring of the prefrontal cortex in both those two groups
Mhm.
are very, very similar. So, in many ways, there is a meditative element to
Right.
long distance running that affects the brain's wiring in a very similar way that sort of meditation practitioners experience.
Especially if you're going around and around in a block, I would imagine so, because you'd have to, because you know where you're going to step. It isn't like going on a trail in the wilderness where you have to use your brain 100% of the time. You've gone around
Yeah.
this block. You know where every crack is. You know where every turn is. You know where everything is. So your mind is almost on autopilot.
I suppose there's a hypnotic quality to it, isn't there, really? In the way
Yeah,
you're right. If you're going round and round the same block, it's almost running on a hamster wheel in a way, right? In an urban context. So,
exactly.
yeah.
It's very strange to me. I don't know, but people do it every year. So, but now finish this sentence. I wish
Mhm.
runners would do this daily.
Breathe better.
So how should they be breathing?
Well, okay. A lot of the times um, we sort of obviously people who run and know how to run so very quickly learn how to breathe.
Hmm.
And we have two openings in our body for breathing: our mouth and our nose, which give us four possible combinations, right? We can use our nose to breathe in and out. We can use our mouth to breathe in and out. We can breathe in through the nose and then out through the mouth. We can breathe in through the mouth and out through the nose. That's it, right? I think that's
Hmm.
step four. I covered four. Okay.
Right.
And we have done studies for this. People say, what's the best way to breathe? And by best, usually they mean what's the easiest way to consume as much oxygen as possible. The studies show that whether we breathe in through our nose or our mouth, the amount of oxygen which we get into our bloodstream, into our lungs, sorry, it's the same. So there's no difference. But there is a significant difference if we breathe in through our nose. Okay, what difference is there? First of all, through the nose, we have tiny hair follicles. They filter out all the particulates in the atmosphere. They warm up the air, atmospheric air. By the time it reaches the lungs, it's significantly warmer than if it goes in through the throat.
Mhm.
So this makes a difference to our physiology. But there is something else that happens if we breathe through the nose. If we take in air through our nasal cavity, by the time it reaches the lungs, there's a process which involves the nitrates in the bloodstream, which absorb significantly more oxygen from each breath than if we took it in through the mouth.
Interesting.
So the amount of oxygen that we actually take in with each breath when we breathe in through the nose is better for us when we run, especially, but in any exercise, in sort of in general,
Mhm.
than if we breathe in through the mouth. So that is usually the best way to do it, and it's the best way to also do it after running. So we get into the habit of basically having deep, even breaths. And there's a study back in 2014, I think, that showed that if we take in slightly deeper breaths throughout the day, we can end up burning up as much as 500 calories extra,
Cool.
which is about an hour. It's about an hour on the treadmill, right?
Yeah, that's really good to know. It probably works better outside of allergy season. I tell you.
Yeah, yeah, obviously, yeah,
Yeah, I'm kind of joking there, but yeah, that's something to remember.
yeah,
If you can't be done while you're running, just after you're running, to start breathing through your nose.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, especially those who are new to running, tend to go too fast too quickly. So they
Mhm.
end up breathing improperly because they are hypoxygenated, so they get out of breath, so they get out of sync, so they start breathing in and out through their mouth. They get exhausted a lot more quickly. It's energetically a little bit more expensive to force the air out through your mouth,
Mhm.
and it adds to the general fatigue they feel, which is it doesn't help.
So you started out as a chemical engineer, right?
Oh yes, I did. Yeah,
So you
I,
so what made you veer off from that career?
I did my master's in quantum mechanics on laminar flow processes, quantum electrodynamics on laminar flow processes, which is a very highly elegant way of saying I worked on paints. So essentially, there's a process where if you look at different chemical processes, you
Mhm.
produce different size particles in paint,
Okay.
which then allows it, when you spread it, to give you a much more professional long-lasting result because they form different bonds than if you used a different paint, which would actually need a lot of work and somebody to know about it. So the process takes the expert out of that. And the reason I mention this is essentially because it comes down to energy. And chemical engineering is about thermodynamics, which is the flow of energy throughout the universe. It's a foundational basis of every physical process that we understand.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, I sort of started writing for newspapers, and that's why I veered off course about how we use this kind of knowledge in everyday systems in our lives. And I sort of popularized a lot of science for my readers. And that kind of led me astray. So I didn't, I did other things apart from chemical engineering.
So you found the human energy and human movement much more interesting than home improvement.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
You could when you put it like this, that's right. Yeah, it was a lot more attractive.
I think it's much more interesting too. There's a lot more variables, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. We are a universe. Each person's a universe, literally.
Right,
There's a
right.
uniqueness to each of us that
Absolutely.
only now we're actually coming
Mhm,
to grips with,
mhm.
and that's really fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. I believe that too, and it's just changing so quickly now. Everything
Mm,
is there's just so much. It's so different. If you look at one way to see it, if you look at TV shows, I like some older TV shows like the original Law& and Order that started in 1990.
hmm
If you look at the
Yep.
first couple seasons and you look at somebody who was supposed to be in their 40s or 50s back then, they look like they're in their 60s or 70s now. It's amazing
Yeah,
how much older
that's
they
right.
looked back then. Well, of course, they drank and they smoked and they didn't get the exercise they do now. They didn't take care
No,
of
they
themselves.
didn't. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in the 70s. The
Mhm.
actuarial tables for the
Yeah.
generation before me
Yeah.
showed that, you used to retire about age 65, and by 67, 68, you were dead.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. It's
And
amazing.
and it made sense. Yeah, and at the time, it made sense to have pensions on a final salary. So basically, your pension was calculated on the final salary of your career, which was pretty high,
Mhm.
because really you were not expected to live for another 20, 30 years. So it didn't actually
Yeah.
drain their finances.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
within my lifetime, right, that window expanded by 20 to 25 years.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's, that puts it in context.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, and it's just getting longer and longer now. It's incredible. So,
It,
why did you write the book Built to Last?
okay, that's a good question. I every
Mm,
book has an origin story.
of course.
And I didn't really set out to write about fitness because fitness is something I did all my life. And
Mhm.
for me it was always safety valve, the kind of place where I go to clear my head and
Mhm.
exercise my body. So I didn't really want to talk about it too much. Although looking back, pretty much, in pretty much everything I did when it came to business or talk, somewhere along the line, we talk about health and then we
Mhm.
talk about fitness.
Right.
You can't separate the human condition from the ability of the person to function in a healthy way in any kind of environment.
True.
And that's the same whether you're in business or whether you're talking about sort of a decision making in sort of different contexts, or you're talking about fitness today or society. So we need healthy individuals to actually be happy, be fulfilled, do
Mm.
happy, fulfilling things. And we know that people who are happy and people who are fulfilled don't do bad things because you're disinclined to do those things.
Right.
So these are good things. I wrote the book because I have a friend. With the pandemic, I've got a home gym because I was going to go crazy not being able
Mhm.
to train. So I kitted out one room in my house and I started training. And I have a friend who also has a home gym. And once a week, we would get together and would exercise together. And we'll talk because it's kind of a social thing as well. So he would tell me the latest thing he read in some kind of magazine, and we'll sort of look at it. Is it a myth? Is it something can be debunked? And I would bring in studies which showed, as we age, right,
Mm.
what should we be doing? How should we think differently?
Right.
So how should we train differently in order to maintain the biologically youthful aspects
Mhm.
of our fitness?
Mhm.
So out of those discussions over a period of a couple of years, the book idea was born.
Mm.
And then I passed it to my agent, and she thought, we'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
It's so fascinating to find what everyone did during the time when we weren't supposed to be doing anything, we found ways of communicating and being with each other because you have to. Humans
Yes,
have to. You can't isolate like
absolutely.
that. That's so unhealthy. That's like the worst thing in the world. The healthiest thing is to be outside and be in the sunshine. And they're telling everyone not to do that. My friend used to come by and pick me up, and we would go to these trails that were closed, quote unquote closed, but we went on them anyway. So because
Good
there's
for
nobody
you.
there, and what are you going to do? Arrest me?
Well,
So
exactly. Yeah,
so we
yeah.
went on them anyway.
I know. The pandemic affected all of us
Yeah.
significantly in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that effect is being expressed is still being felt and worked out
Right.
today. So we still notice behaviors that were not present before the pandemic.
Right.
We have all more or less reprioritized some of our values and
Mm-hmm.
some of our focus.
Yeah.
And certainly even before the pandemic, we knew that. You mentioned the social aspect, which is really, really
Mm-hmm.
important. We know that if you want a healthy human being, basically you need four things. You need to have some kind of exercise, you need to have good nutrition, you need to have adequate sleep for recovery and repair, and then you need to have socializing. And we know from the blue zones around the world, there are 5 blue zones in 5 different places across the world, where people live longer than average globally by a significant margin.
Mm-hmm.
And studies have been carried in all these different places. And the culture is different, the language is different, the food is different, the type of exercise is different, the socioeconomic conditions are generally not very high. So we can't say, well, they have high disposable income and then they can essentially buy their longevity. But what is significantly obvious once we study and normalize the different variables is that there's always a very strong community element to these places.
True.
And although the people haven't got easy lives by the understanding of easy of people living in developed countries,
Mm-hmm.
the community element where you kind of feel that you belong is a major factor in alleviating stress, which then goes on to alleviate chronic inflammation,
Mm-hmm.
which then has an impact on so many different health outcomes, including how we age.
Yes.
So being social is hugely important. I can't stress it enough. It's important for the body, obviously, but it's really important for the brain. Our brains are so complex, they can't self-calibrate. There's no self-diagnostic mechanism we can run that will tell us when our brain is not running well or it isn't, or it is. And if left to its own devices, isolated from anybody else, it completely goes off kilter and we can't tell. We can't tell what's real and what's in our mind.
Mm-hmm.
So having a connection with another brain, another person, essentially, helps the brain self-calibrate. And it's that self-calibrating mechanism that then is expressed through the production of hormones in the gut and hormones in the brain and hormones in the bloodstream, which impact pretty much every major organ in the body. So it's important to have that sense of belonging, that sense of connection, at least with one other person.
Right. It really is. I'm lucky I live in San Francisco in the Bay Area. We have such a strong running community, and I really like that. And it's really the weather's nice here, and it's a very nice place to live as far as running goes. All of Northern California is kind of like that. It's a
It
nice
is.
it's a nice area with lots of runners and a good community. So I'm pretty lucky with that. It's expensive, but put that aside. But there are places in the Northern California that aren't as expensive as others. So, but it's nice.
Yeah.
Now now I went to the website, the darebee.com has a lot of the
Yeah.
exercises. What is that, and how did that get started? Were
What
you
is Derby? Okay, that has also
Yeah.
has an interesting origin story. Okay, it was started by my wife back in
Okay.
2011,
Okay.
and this is how that went. Right, I've been training all my life,
Mhm.
and I hold black belt in 3 different martial arts styles. I was a martial arts competitor at a very
Mhm.
high level, national level, for a
Mhm.
number of years. And my sort of idea of training for a large part of my life was relatively extreme because of the what I did. So she started training with me, and she found it really difficult. And she wanted to find a different way to exercise. So she basically put together for herself specific workouts to help her do something every day. And it was back in 2011 when Google Plus was starting out, and that was Google's social network.
Mm-hmm.
And she shared her workouts back then in the network,
Mm-hmm.
and they went viral. And that was
Nice.
the beginning of Derby. Yeah, that was the beginning of Derby. And Derby essentially is her idea that fitness, which I fully subscribe to,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. The
Mhm.
fitness is a right, not a privilege. It shouldn't be behind paywalls. It shouldn't be allocated to only people who have the luck to be in a particular
Right.
postcode. You don't need to have access to personal trainers and expensive gyms in order to
Mhm.
actually be fit in yourself and lead a healthy life.
Right.
So the website is staffed by volunteers mostly. The core group, but there are a lot of volunteers. We have volunteer groups around the world. We trial the workouts. The core group have quite a lot of expert knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Put together workouts. They go through a trial of about between 4 and 8 weeks, depending on the complexity of the workout.
Mm-hmm.
It comes back with feedback. People who try them have different socioeconomic background. They have different mixed groups of different ages and different
Mm-hmm.
fitness levels. They give us all the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And then we slightly modify the workouts and they go to more volunteer groups to give us more feedback. And then we put them out. So beginning to end, you're looking between, depending, 4 and 8 weeks. And we bring about 5 workouts every week, 5 different ones, because there's a lot in the pipeline coming in every day. Now, and there are, at the moment, I think there are just over 2,500 workouts. It's a crowdsourced website, so people just donate. We don't push on that in any way. We just leave it to whoever
I really
feels like
like
it.
that. I really enjoy that. It's we'll have the link for that and of course your book on the website
Oh, thank you.
martharunstheworld.com. Everything will be there for it. I really enjoy that. I like the different variations of beginner and medium and advanced, and there's all the
Yeah,
different choices you can take and what you want it for, whether you are a runner or a cyclist or into martial arts or anything like that. You give all the different variations, or if you just want to be a more fit person, there's all the
yeah,
differences, and I really
that's right.
enjoy
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's
Oh, thank you.
very, very
And
cool. Yeah.
we have programs which are the programs themselves are fascinating because we
Mhm.
have programs you can do every day and they have a sort of built-in element to it. But
Right.
also we were the first ones to bring out role-playing games in fitness. So essentially there's a storyline attached to the program to make it more immersive.
Oh, cool.
And here's where it gets fascinating because the storyline actually has choices and the choices have moral implications.
Oh,
So
that's
if you're
fun.
going through, yeah, if you're
Okay.
going through, for example, there's one called the hero's journey. And if you're going
Mhm.
through a village where you have to help somebody out and you don't, right? Because you need to do your quest and you don't want to lose time. So you don't help them out. And then later on, because you didn't help them out, you don't have something which you need to
Oh,
actually deal. So
I love it.
now you base, yeah. So now your choices have consequences. So you have to think about it, right? Because it's not easy.
Well,
So
it's not
yeah,
always
it's
about
absolutely
you too either, you know?
it's never about you, really. Let's face it, or it shouldn't be.
No, exactly. I like that. That is very cool. I'm gonna have to check
Yeah.
that out. That is really neat. So, what are a couple things that you do daily to keep you on the right track?
Okay. This is what I do. And I stopped competing the year 2000, and I've got to say, up to that time, I had an extremely high level of fitness. I trained every day,
Mhm.
7 days a week, for pretty much that all my life, but
Mhm.
particularly those 10 years when I was competing.
Right.
But that was easy because that didn't come from me. It came from the environment around me. I had
Mhm.
coaches and I had instructors and I had teammates,
Mhm.
and there was a culture, a competition culture where you understand you have to put in the work. It's non-negotiable. So I didn't have to think about that. And then when I stopped competing the year 2000, I sort of coasted on my fitness for a little bit. And then I started thinking, okay, this needs to I need to sort of start getting back into it. And I had to change my idea, to change my motivation, to actually work out my who. Who am I when I don't compete? And then understand why I'm training. And it took a while to work that out. So my goal is to train every day. And I've got to do something every single day. And not every day is the same. I've got the same pressure as everybody else in my life. I've got a far from perfect life. Things happen and put me off kilter. But this is what I have done. I have actually strategized my fitness. If I don't train an hour a day because I can't, I have something which I'll do, which will be 10, 15 minutes. And if I can't even do that, I have something which will take 2 minutes and I will do it. And when I've done that, I don't feel guilty about not exercising. We're our own worst enemies. We beat ourselves up. We think we have failed. We are not good. We're not motivated. We're not organized. And it's none of that. Life is messy and we just have to adapt. So I'm thinking, okay, I did, what is it, 2 minutes? I had to do like 50 push-ups, 40 squats. Great. I've done it. I've got that out of the way and I'm going to get on with my day without feeling guilty and just press on. And next day it starts afresh without feeling that, oh, I failed yesterday, which is very important.
That is wonderful advice. I really like that. That is very, very cool. I think we can all learn from that and take that for every day. I like that. If you can't do your 2 hours, do 20, 50 minutes. If you can't do that, do 10 minutes. If you can't do that, do 2 minutes. Do something every day. I really enjoy that a lot. Especially even if it's a rest day, just do something. Go for a walk.
Yeah.
Go for a 10-minute walk, if nothing else. I think that's
Yes,
really important.
we,
Yeah.
we know from anthropologists who have been embedded for periods between 6 and 9 months in isolated hunter-gatherer tribes. And these tribes haven't got any contact with the civilized world. So they pretty much live in the lifestyle of the Neolithic age. And they are very active because, they have to walk to their food, they have to carry their water, they have to dig for roots, they have to chop things down. And you think, they're going to be really, really fit, which they are. But here's the other thing. When they're not doing anything, like this one, they don't have to do anything, they do nothing. They rest. So it's important to actually factor in what you just said. Rest days where you basically are doing things which are lower intensity.
Yeah.
We are certainly built we have been built to be active constantly, but not
Mhm.
at the same level. We can't run a marathon every single day. That's
Right.
it's
Right.
going to damage us.
Right, of course. Well, I've learned that I'm 66, and I've learned that I have to take a rest day every week, just one, but I still can do something. I can still go for a walk. I can still,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
do some smaller stuff, and that's fine, but I can't. I've never been able to run every day. Excuse me. I've never been able to run every day. I've never been one of those streak runners, but I can run 5 days a week, 4 days a week. That's fine. The other, excuse me, a couple days a week I do strength training, and then one day I don't. I maybe go for a walk, and then that's it.
Yes. Yeah.
And that works for me. So yeah.
Yeah. On I'll add this for your listeners as well.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, there have been studies carried out that show that on your rest days, when you're doing nothing, if you visualize doing something, you sit there and actually visualize yourself running, for instance, or lifting weights or hitting a bug or whatever. There are neurochemical changes that take place in the body that activate the muscles to a degree that mirrors what you're actually thinking about.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
so it's fascinating because the muscles themselves, obviously, they are activated to some degree. They basically have micro movements which prepare them for the kind of action that your body is visualizing. And the neurochemical changes that take place in the bloodstream also mirror the activity that would happen. And it's like the body is actually using the rest phase to improve its active phase. So
That's
if you can
awesome.
call it that, yeah, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
it's a good thing
Yeah.
to do. In martial arts, people do it. In martial arts law, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, which we didn't obviously have a lot of science for at the time. Which said, the master sits there and trains his body and his mind, and you think, oh yeah, right, he's just he's sitting there, he's only sitting there, right? But no, actually, now we know that there's truth to that.
That's smart. Okay, that's something to remember. I have to
Yeah.
remember that when I'm sitting at work and on my rest day and thinking, okay, I won't think of work. I'll think of running.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that would
Yeah.
help both
Yeah.
your cardiovascular system and your muscles, and you'll just
Okay.
feel better as well.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I am
Thank you for having me.
yes, and I'm gonna look more look some more at Derby because that is just such a cool website. And
Thank you.
yeah, I'm gonna put some of some of that breathing into my run today, which I'm gonna do after this. And you have some great advice, and I truly appreciate it. And good luck
Thank you
on
so much.
your book sales and everything, because it's looks really cool. I'm going to buy myself a copy
Thank you.
as well. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much, David. It was a pleasure talking with you. It was a lot of fun. You have an excellent, excellent website, actually, a couple of them. And I really enjoy what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing. And I know that my listeners will also enjoy that and get a lot out of it. So, yeah, good luck on everything. Okay, so I hope you are doing very well this week. All of David's information will be on the website, martharunstheworld.com. And if you want to email me, it's martharunstheworld@gmail.com. And until next week, let's tie up our shoelaces and go for a run.